Good evening, everyone. My name is Tamara DeRitter. I'm the chair for the Rose City Park Neighborhood Association. And this is our board meeting for the Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021. I'd like for each of us to go ahead and introduce ourselves to the camera.
So I'm Richard Crockett, the treasurer, and on the communications committee, and we're going to be talking about budget and things today. And I had to withdraw what I had submitted because I found I had used the wrong base for it. It's an oops on me, but I will get that taken care of. But I didn't discover it until close to board time, and I got to go through a stack of stuff to figure it out. So sorry about that. Terry.
Terry Parker, board member and Land Use and Transportation Committee member, and rep to CNN for the Land Use and Transportation Committee.
Pass it off to somebody else.
Stephanie Singer, board member on the Diversity Committee, and I guess I'm going to be on the Events Committee.
Pass it off.
Kelly.
Kelly Davis, board member and co-chair with Tamara of the Land Use and Transportation Committee.
Allison Taylor, board member, and that's it. Going through a crazy kitchen remodel. Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer Sandhouse, secretary, member of the Communications and Events Committee. And pass it off to Zoe.
Hello, Zoe Ezekiels, vice chair, and I'm also in the Diversity Committee and Land Use Committees. Who hasn't gone yet? Joe, have you gone yet?
No, sorry, I joined a little late. Joe Anderson, intern, and I'm on communications and budgeting. I think that's all of us.
That leaves Don.
That leaves Don.
Don.
Don Levine, board member, and I sit on the Community Safety Committee.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. Before we get going, we have a land acknowledgement and neighborhood agreements. And I'm sure we can pull up the screen for that, right? Or I could just go ahead and read it. What's your pleasure?
Go ahead and take it away, Tamara.
Okay. This is the one that was adopted as of the board in, it was July 8th of this year. And it was adapted from a Portland Metro Habitat for Humanity land acknowledgement. As a neighborhood, we acknowledge the unceded land we occupy and its original inhabitants, including the Multnomah, Wasco, Cowlitz, Clackamas, Clackamas, bands of Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Molalla, and many other tribes who made their homes along the Columbia River, currently united as the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. The community includes over 30 tribes and bands up from Western Oregon, Northern California, and Southwestern Washington. We acknowledge that this land was seized through coercion, dishonesty, and brutality. We acknowledge the violent history of Euro-American settlement that sought to extinguish indigenous life from this land. We recognize the enduring influence of that history on our region and the nearly 70,000 Native people descended from over 380 tribes living here today. The Rose City Park neighborhood was platted in 1907, the year of the first Portland Rose Festival. The neighborhood was designed as a true community, as a village in a park, providing accommodation to a wide range of incomes and people. Many of the major roads in the Rose City Park neighborhood connected Chinook villages from between three rivers, which white colonizers named the Columbia, the Willamette, and the Sandy, instead of honoring the older names such as Nichwana, Great River, for the largest of the three. This land serves all people of different races, ethnic, and national backgrounds. We intend to honor the sacrifices of Native peoples by committing ourselves to the community justice and equity. We pay respect to the Native people of this land, past and present, offer gratitude to the rivers and forests that nourish our communities, and acknowledge our collective duty as stewards of this land. Yay. That. And I actually have neighborhood agreements as amended by Jennifer. Jennifer, you want me to read those again, or you want to take them away?
Jennifer, you are muted.
Good, then you can't hear me mumbling over here. Hold on one second. I'll pull that back up. Okay. We, in June 2021, the Rose City Park Neighborhood Association Board adopted the following neighborhood agreements based on the community agreements from the Dunford White Labor Collective and agreement principles from the Historic Albina Advisory Board for all of its activities, including but not limited to meetings, email, and publications. We will take collective and individual ownership. We will center and prioritize the most marginalized voices. We will assume best intentions, and we will bring our best intentions. We will use ouch and oops to identify harms and to swiftly apologize in reply. We will take space and make space. We will listen for understanding and remain respectfully engaged. We will deal with issues, not with people. We will be willing to experience discomfort in difficult conversations, and we will expect that difficult issues will not be fixed quickly, but will continue to support and engage our neighborhood and related communities. The end.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Okay. So for tonight, we have an agenda before us. And I'll cover this real quickly. First, we have the board minutes from September 7th. Treasurer's report, LUTOP report, then also CNN board report. That's followed by old business, what happened at our general membership meeting, draft art placement letter, and we have two different drafts, one from Terry and one from Zoe. We have new business that would be looking forward at the January general membership meeting. What's our theme and who are our speakers? We also have a number of things from the diversity committee, which include a land acknowledgement update, recommended mission statement, and the draft equity screen. Also, their statement of dissolution. So that's interesting. We also have board training and something that Stephanie had suggested to the board as a link for us to talk about. And then we have committee reports. Are there any items to add or delete from this list? Yes, Don.
Yes, I'd like to add discussion of the CNN Small Grants Program. I think you're muted, Tam.
So would that be under new business?
We could either put it under new business or we can include it in the CNN report, although the grants handbook and application just came out today.
Oh, okay. Why don't we cover it in the CNN board report? And then if there's an action to be taken, add that to new business. Does that
Great.
sound good?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, anything else to add? Hearing none, do I have a motion to accept the the agenda as amended?
Motion.
Motion. Do you have a second? I can second it. Oh, I've got a wave from Terry. Okay. And a second from Terry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, it passes. We do have board minutes from September 7th. I have not had a chance to read them. Has anyone else? Stephanie did. Yay.
I've read most of it,
Okay.
except for the fact that my name has 2 T's in it, Jennifer. I would like to move that the minutes be accepted as presented.
Okay.
I second.
You're still
Tammy,
muted.
you are muted.
Sorry, I've got a moaning dog. She just got spayed today and I was trying to keep quiet. Okay, motioned and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? I'm going to abstain because I didn't read them. So,
I will fix the spelling on your name, Richard. I know better.
We have another person who came in, Sarah, and I asked her if she wanted to introduce herself, and she says whenever it's time, she can do that.
yes, Sarah,
Observe and
welcome. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
Oh, you can't see me though. There we go. Can you see me now?
Now we
Yes.
can see you.
Right on. Thanks. Richard, thanks for welcoming me. I'm just here to observe and listen. I have not ever sat in on a neighborhood association meeting before, and I live on 54th, and I'm just here to check things out. So that's all. My name's Sarah. Nice to meet y'all, and thanks for the work that you do.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. Thanks for joining us.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. If you have any questions, just raise your hand as we're going along. Okay. All right. So first up, we have the treasurer's report.
Okay,
Okay.
so treasurer's report. Not much going on. Since the last report, we've had, I'm trying to pull it up on my screen right now. Come on. There we go. We paid the neighborhood association half of the pass the hat, and then we got a couple interest in from the beneficial state bank. So we currently have just short of 13,000 in the checking account as of the end of October. But we've already paid the printing for the last newsletter, so we're down another $789. So not much going on there. And as I said, when we first came on, I tried to do up a budget thing, and I realized I picked up the wrong one. I picked up the budget from 2021, and I should have picked up one from 2022. And when looking for it, couldn't find it readily. So it will come out, and I'll just circulate it to the board.
Okay. Also, we did have a budget meeting.
Right,
Right.
right. And that's what I'm referencing to. We had something that came up from that, and that's what I haven't typed up yet.
Okay. We can talk about it though.
Okay.
We have the 3 other members that were at the meeting. I believe the status of our budget is right now, we don't have any income
Right,
coming in other than what we get for our advertisements
and community partners.
and community partner donations, right? And so we put a hold right now on doing any grants, any George Walker Awards, anything like that right now, so we can then figure out what we can do. And one of the ideas that was brought up by Stephanie at our budget meeting was to do a neighborhood-wide garage sale. And then with that, do a publication for which folks could get their name on a list. you know, so we would be able to publish this list and give people information about what's at that garage sale possibly. And also maybe sell advertisement on the back. There was a number of different ideas. And I've heard that there's other neighborhoods, Eastmoreland and maybe Laurelhurst, that have done this before. I don't know how much money it raises, but I do know that we did not have that large of an expense this last time with doing concerts in the park, but that was with the Hollywood Neighborhood Association, who swore they're not going to do this again. And we're not sure if we're going to do it again either. So we're kind of up in the air about our fundraising. Typically in the past, we've done our neighborhood cleanups. And with that, we had both the cans, the big monster tipping cans, donated, as well as the tipping fee waived, at least in part. And we had like 5 of those. And then we'd have people come in and give us donations as they come in and drop off their stuff, and we pack it away, and then it gets carried away. And that money went directly into what we do with the music in the parks. So we don't have that. That was taken away, both number of things happening with Metro. They decided, well, maybe we shouldn't just give this to the neighborhoods. We should give it to everyone. And they haven't really given it to anyone. The city's trying to still figure that out. And also Civic Life became Civic Life out of the Office of Neighborhood Involvement. And they pulled back also their help, because we used to have Rhonda from Central Northeast Neighbors that would help organize all this. And we don't have both that person, the free tipping fees, and that coordination. So right now we're clamoring to figure out how can we raise the money. I believe we did pretty well this year compared to past years, as far as not getting too far in the hole with concerts in the park.
Right, we did. But it was in the hole because we just, there is income only from donations there, and we did still have an agreement with Hollywood to split the two. I wanted to give them whatever they picked up, and they said, oh, no, let's put it together. So we came out a little bit, a couple $100 better than that, because we collected less than they did on their concert. So it's like in a meeting I was in, a little bit of pizza is better than no pizza. So we got to figure out what we can do to get a little bit of income. And I'm going to try and find out who at Laurelhurst would have the knowledge of what they've been doing down there. Because obviously we're not going to do anything until springtime. It's going to be the wet time now, and people are going to be busy with Thanksgiving and the holidays and all of that. So I think we should be shooting for something in spring.
So how do you make money from a garage sale, if I could be so stupid to ask that?
So the idea is to make a map that shows where the houses are that are having the garage sales, and to have a fee for that, for being on the map, $10, $20. And in addition, to ask people to consider giving a certain percentage of their proceeds to the organization, and possibly also selling advertisement on that map. So, and the idea would be to have both a physical map and a map online.
Okay.
One thing you got to think about when you're doing this is that you also have to place an ad someplace for the garage sale with the map. In other words, you've got to let the public know that the garage sale neighborhood wide is going to happen. So whether you put an ad in the Oregonian, whether you have something on the internet, you have to have some sort of advertising that goes along with that map. And that's going to cut into the profits of just charging for a map.
We could have Joe share it on the socials that he's been working super hard on.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that, Terry. Another thing is that there should definitely be an article, and I can do this, an article in the January newsletter to kind of get people psyched and to get the idea in their head. And maybe we should even choose a date, choose a weekend, so that we can tell people, please look ahead to this weekend. So with the deadline is early December for the newsletter, I think Jennifer said last time, so December 3.
Two places where people look for this type of thing. There's a couple of estate sale type websites that you pay for, Estate Sale Finder and estatesale.net. There's also Craigslist, which is free, I think. And there is a big garage sale section on Craigslist. So that's another place you could advertise it. That's what you got to think of, because you got to let the public know that this is happening so that they come. And with Eastmoreland and Lorehurst, I haven't been to one for a couple, 3 years. But they get a lot of people. I mean, there's sometimes parking's even at a premium.
I think Craigslist is a good idea. Also Facebook. That's where I go. Craigslist and Facebook.
I'm thinking of where the people that go to these sales go, knowing a lot of these type of people, because I've been going to estate sales more so than garage sales for years.
Yeah, I mean, no one's dying, so it's not an estate sale, but I think it's a good.
But I'm just
I think
saying these are the
Craigslist is
places
good.
that they look for the thing, and the garage sales are primarily on Craigslist.
Yeah.
So how about we add to the new business a date for the garage sale? Sound good?
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you. Next, we have Loop Top report. Terry? I don't think
Blue Top report. We did not have a committee meeting. It was canceled the last minute. So there's nothing new to report.
Okay. Then we are at CNN board report. Don?
Okay, CNN board report. The meeting was relatively uneventful. There was a presentation by an organization called Trees for Life, who advocate for big tree planting and placement in the Portland area, dealing with large form trees, larger than 60 feet tall, with at least a 75-year lifespan. Talking about the city requirements and advocating for placement of large trees, or trees that will become large over time, as a way for sustainability and improve livability in the Portland area. From the other neighborhood associations, some of them are doing projects. The Hollywood and Wilshire Boulevard, or Wilshire Beaumont, have received a safety grant from Portland Police Bureau, and that it enables them to every Wednesday afternoon to do a 90-minute patrol with Portland police officers around the neighborhood and interact with the police. Cully is engaged in a cleanup with Solve, and from Madison South, they let us know that 82nd Avenue will be transferred from state to city control probably by February, with the goal of decreasing traffic accidents and pedestrian deaths. And at that meeting, Rhonda reported that she was working on the small grant proposal, and she just put that out today. So I'd like to talk about that later at some time.
Great, thank you. Could you embellish a little bit on the the grant that they had with Beaumont Wilshire and walking with the cops? How did they?
You know, they didn't give any additional information on how they secured that grant. I wasn't aware of any small grant for that purpose, but Hollywood and Wilshire Beaumont, they just reported that they had secured a safety grant, and each Wednesday they walk about 90 minutes with cops in the area. They've also said that they've given about 9 ring systems and several clubs, which are anti-auto theft devices, to residents of the neighborhoods as a result of that grant.
Good. Well, we'll have to if you would contact them and find out the source of that, so we would have access to that possibly.
Sure, I'll do that.
Thank you so much. Okay, it's 7:25 already, and now we're to lessons learned at the October GM meeting. Any thoughts about our just occurred general membership meeting from folks?
Well, I didn't realize that Carmen and her chief of staff lived in Rose City Park, both of them. So that was something that was learned.
Yes. That was pretty amazing,
Yeah.
I thought. One thing that I'd like to think about or propose is that an email blast go out to all of our email on our list with the link for the Zoom at least a day prior to the meeting, so people don't have to go and then look for the link. Just
That's a good idea.
idea so we can increase our numbers.
You want a motion to that? Because I think it's good too. That way you can just click on the link instead of trying to type it in.
Stephanie's got her hand up too.
Yes.
Yeah, and if we could add putting it on the website. I've now talked to two separate people who wanted to come to an event of ours and said I couldn't find it on the website. So I think there's an expectation that if there's a meeting, there should be either a link on the website or I know most organizations I know have a send us an email and we'll send you a link kind of thing. I think to protect against Zoom bombing and stuff like that. I'm not an expert on what best practice is there, but the basic idea is that if someone is interested in going, they should be able to find easily on the website how they might get access to the meeting.
I would just like to make a point that it is on the website and it is the first thing that you see. And it says meeting agenda and Zoom link inside.
I will take a look. I mean, these are people aren't finding it, so and they're not stupid people. So
yeah, no,
I'm not sure what the deal is, but
we did try to be pretty conscientious, and it was posted on the 24th. So it's rcpna.org. It should be like on the front page. I will also note that we are doing some website redesign, so this should get clearer, but honestly, it couldn't be more obvious where it is. So I don't know what happened there.
Okay, Sarah is shaking her head no and raising her hand. So Sarah, you want to unmute?
Yeah, it's just, it is really prominently and on the top of the website, but it's just the link to the October 26th meeting and the agenda, and it doesn't show the current meeting or any meeting for today. So I found one prominently on the top of the website, but I just wasn't able to find one for the current meeting that's happening tonight.
Yeah.
Is there a different spot I should be looking?
No, I think you're right. So what's on the website is the general meeting invite. So I think like just topically, that's what we're speaking at. We can and should also put a link to our board meeting location as well. So that's a good note.
One thing that I'd like to add is there's no reason why we can't go ahead and schedule our board meeting Zoom links.
They are all scheduled.
Okay, if they're already scheduled, there's no reason for it not to be published. Okay.
It's actually the same link every time.
Well, see, I didn't know that. Oh, there you
so
go.
Same for our board meetings. It's in the calendar appointment. So it's a recurring meeting. And then I don't know if that's the same for the general meeting, but that is the intention, that it's the same recurring meeting. So that's all scheduled through Zoom.
So who posts things on the website? Does Nate still involved in that, or do we have a new person that you're supposed to contact?
I think it is sort of me. I think it's mainly Michelle. There's some weird auto posting stuff set up, but I think it's mainly Michelle. Do you want me to drop her email in the chat?
You can just send it to communications@rcpna.com.
Yeah, or
she's on that list.
Okay, let's recap. One is I'd like to make sure that we have an email blast at least one day prior to the next general membership meeting with the email, I mean, the link, and maybe a link to the agenda, you know, so they have two different links. And so one is, this is the Zoom and this is the agenda, something like that, something really quick. And it begins this time and this time and ends this time, and this is the date. So
It would be helpful to keep the agenda set before we do that, because the agenda sometimes changes 3 times during the day of the meeting. So, you know, I find that very frustrating. Also, we need to find out where our list is. I'm not sure who has custody of those names.
Also, I think that it should be maybe a couple of days before the meeting, because not everybody looks at their email every day. Even if, I mean, I know people that don't look at it every day. I give them a telephone call. Did you get my email? No, I haven't been down there in a couple of days, or I haven't checked it in a couple of days. So one day before is pretty short notice.
true. And I am definitely guilty of getting things out late because it seems like everything lands on me. If Zoe wants to pick up some of that pace as our vice president, I would greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, I
I
have my email on my phone.
there's
there
only
all the
so
time.
much, you know, bandwidth I've got, you know, and it gets smaller and smaller as my work ramps up. So
Yeah, let's
I'm trying.
coordinate.
Yeah, let's do that. So the ideal is that we would get the agendas out 1 week prior.
You're here.
That's a goal, okay? And so the email blasts, should they go out 1 week prior to? Or what time should?
I
I
think
would
we
say
discussed
2
sending them out
days.
3 days.
Okay,
3 days is
3 days is fine.
okay. Okay, and what else did we talk about? Making sure that it's posted on the website. So if we've got the agenda 1 week prior, we've got maybe the link, Zoom link published 1 week prior on the website. Does that sound like we could handle all of that and be better off? Yes, Stephanie?
So I'm wondering what would be involved, and maybe Joe or Jennifer can say, in having a place on the website where the official agenda is posted, and what we send out then is a link, so that if we need to update the agenda, given that we're an all volunteer organization and things don't always happen exactly on time, that way anyone who wants to see the agenda would be able to see the latest version of it. We wouldn't have to be managing 100 different versions. There would be just on the website, here is the expected agenda for the next meeting. Is that, Joe, you're nodding? I'm hoping that means, yeah, that's feasible.
It is totally possible. We can 100% do that. Yeah, that is possible, and we can do it. It just might take a bit to implement because the website is just currently really up in the air, and we're working on getting everything sorted out.
Right. So I would, I mean, if it's appropriate, Tammy, I would move that at the pace that is considerate of everything else that's going on the website, that we implement that as soon as we can.
And we can address this during the communications committee update, but we've actually already talked about all of these things. Like, this is all like from, I don't know, what was it, Joe? So it was like August maybe, or September.
Yeah, it was that meeting we had in person. Yeah.
So
Well,
including all these timelines.
Not all of us are part of the communications committee. It helps us to talk it through. Right.
Yeah.
So
we'll talk about like kind of what the timing looks like for that revamp later in the meeting.
Sarah wants to say something again.
Thanks, Tamara. I just wanted to ask, I'm still struggling to figure out where would I find the information for the next general meeting, just so I can like put it on my calendar and plan to show up. Or will that just be updated on the website and I just need to come check back in like 2 weeks or something? And it happens once a month? Is that?
You want me to address it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
Okay, so we have 4 general meetings a year. Our next general meeting will actually be in January, toward the end of the month. So it's the third, sorry, everybody's very talkative today. It's the third Tuesday of the month, unless there's some intervening thing. I don't know. Anyway, they'll all be published. It will be published in the newsletter that will come out in mid-January. And we will, over the course of the next 2 months or so, be updating our website, and we'll have like a calendaring aspect to that. So we should actually have all of our different committee meetings, to the extent that we have that information available. So.
Wow, sounds like y'all been doing a lot of work. Thank you. Thanks for bearing with me on the questions. I appreciate it.
No,
They're good questions. Yeah.
Is there any way that we can get like a static information board on the website that says, okay, third Thursday for land use, transportation, this day for communications, and then also announcing the actual days of our general membership meeting throughout the year. So if people are interested, when's the next general membership meeting? It's January 25th. And so at least then they have.
I think that would be the calendar that they're adding.
Well, that's on the newsletter. But if there's, is there a calendar that could be added to?
There is a calendar on the website though. So there's like events. So if you go to events calendar and then you just click on events calendar, and then there's the CNN calendar, and it shows it says like every month. Yeah, because I used to always be like, when's the meeting? And then I looked at the website and like went through. Joe?
You guys take care of the calendar.
So we have that calendar, but what we can also do, Tamara, this might have been what you were getting at, was like add a little sidebar or something that like just says the next meeting is this day. Just like a small sidebar, so you don't have to go clicking around to find the calendar or anything crazy like that.
We are looking at like some revamping, so it might make sense to actually put that information with the committee, so that all of those committee meetings aren't in one place, and then you have to keep going back. If you're specifically interested in land use, you would go to the land use committee portion, and then the fact that it's the third Thursday can be right there at the top of your information page, and then your link to your notes and information.
Okay. Great. Well, more of this will be revealed in the communications discussion. Yeah.
How would people know when a meeting gets canceled? Because sometimes those meetings do get canceled.
That is a good question. It would require someone to be just hunched over the computer, just ready to like update it. I don't know. There could be some like crazy linking stuff we could do between our calendars and everything. But I think right now the most feasible would be to have someone manually update it.
And to use, so the committee lead would, is it on there? The committee lead could also just use their list to send out an email blast if that is sent in short order.
Did her voice just get soft on mine, or did she get soft to you?
Yeah, I got that too.
Yeah, your voice went very soft, Jennifer.
I think that if it's an urgent, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, if it's an urgent cancellation, then we would look to the email list owner to publish that cancellation. If it's something foreseen, then that can be modified on the website, but I wouldn't look to the website for instant updates. We don't have that kind of support.
Okay, good. Anything else for the general membership meeting lessons learned? for successes. Okay, moving back
I
around.
mean, I just want to say that I loved it. I enjoyed it. I was so happy that those speakers came. I was impressed. Yeah, I think that that's a really good thing that this board does for the community, is having people speak and talk about ways to help. And, you know, I think like softly holding people accountable. But I want to commend everyone who worked on that. It was really special. I thought it's a really good thing that we do for the community.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to hear. And Jennifer, thank you so much for bringing Deborah around. She's just amazing.
Yep.
She's a rock star. Yeah. Okay, next we have a couple different letters that are drafted for the art placement. And one is from Terry and the other one's from Zoe. So does anyone have access to the internet files? If not, I will see what I can do.
I can do this if you could see it, but
Would you like me to share my screen?
Jennifer does.
Okay.
Where
Yeah.
would you like to start?
Question. Before we go into discussion of these two letters, I was wondering what the impetus was to generate these letters in the first place. So if we could get a little bit of background, that would be very helpful to me.
Yeah. So with the letters, it was, I think at the last, one of our last board meetings, not the last one, but the one before that, we talked about art, like public art around town and statues that have been taken down and changed, and like nothing's been put up in places where other ones had been taken down. And then I think Terry brought up that there is a council, so the Regional Arts and Cultural Council, that sits and discusses which statues will go up, where they'll go up. And this is done kind of, well, we don't know, but it seems to be like behind closed doors or maybe like exclusive access. And we were, as a group, wondering if there could be a way that the public who sees these statues, these art pieces, if the public could voice their opinions on it and maybe have some say where statues go, which statues get put up.
yeah, there's also, oh, I lost my train of thought here. You're right. It's being done behind closed doors. And there's also been a number of things in the paper. The Sunday paper a week ago had a big article about the statues and how it's all being handled behind closed doors, and that the public really needs to be involved with this. And so the suggestion here is to have the neighborhoods ought to be involved with things that are happening in their neighborhood, the neighborhood association. But there's a lot of, I can't think of the word that I want. It's the public doesn't like it that it's happening behind closed doors. And of course, the statues were torn down illegally, by groups that decided to take it upon themselves. And that's wrong too. So
That's not why we had the letter, though. That's like a separate.
Yeah. The idea of the letter is to have the public and the community and the neighborhoods in particular, if it involves their neighborhoods, involved in the decision-making process.
Don has his hand up. Hold on. Don has his hand up.
So here's my confusion, because I read both letters and I was trying to get some background. And so I went to the website for the Regional Arts and Cultural Council. And after reading it, first of all, they're a nonprofit, and to maintain nonprofit status, I assume that all of their meetings are public the way ours have to be. Well, according to them, I was on the site. I saw how the board is comprised. There's a couple of members of the RAC board on the Public Arts piece. There's one city representative, which is Commissioner Rubio at the present time. And there are 6 to 8 members of the community who are artists or landscape architects, other people with some sort of a background in public art. And it seems through their website that public inclusion is a huge part of their mission. And that one of the problems is we haven't had a lot of statues torn down before. And because of that, there has been no real process to determine who and how and when and what gets replaced. So they have generated a list or a set of proposed guidelines for the city and the county to go through. And they also have a list of frequently asked questions that was just updated the 20th of October, specifically around the disposition of the statues who have been, the 6 statues that have been removed. So, you know, I think that these letters are pretty strongly worded, and they're coming from a kind of an adversarial place. And I think that's totally appropriate when we get to that point that the initial information isn't being responded to. But for me, my comfort level, I found a lot of things that both of these letters referenced. I found a lot of that on the website, and I found a way that I can communicate directly with the people involved, where they have a spot where I can write down my name and my email address and my questions and have them answered in a pretty timely fashion. So it just doesn't appear to me to be a non-transparent process. And in their guidelines, it seems that public participation is a huge part of their mission.
Yeah, so to kind of just to jump in for a second before Terry, it was originally brought to the board from Terry, and then we decided to collaborate on this letter, and now both versions are coming forward to the board, because I was editing his letter and obviously left some parts out and changed some parts. And so that's kind of how it started, as like one initial letter and then going into 2 via the editing process. And then there was no consensus on like which letter should be put forward. And that is why we're here right now.
And
Don, I just wanted to go back to what you were saying, because I went to the Regional Arts Council site too, and I could not find a way to communicate with them. And unlike City Council or Multnomah County Commission or anything else, there isn't an opportunity when they're making these decisions to give public testimony. Yes, you can, maybe you can subscribe to an email list or something like that, but it's, and what I've seen in the paper, what I've seen in the letters to the editor, what's in the Oregonian, I sent out a couple of the responses to the letters to the editor today. I don't know whether you saw them or not, but what I have seen is that other people feel the same way, and they're not necessarily our neighborhood, but I think it's a citywide issue that deserves more public input, and the city council, in my opinion, needs to take it back from this nonprofit and make the decisions, and have a committee that is actually publicly, you know, where the public can actually testify before who's ever making the decisions.
That could be true, Terry. You know, I don't know. All I know is that when I went into the website today, I was able to gain access and find a link to submit direct contact. I know that there is no process currently in place in replacing statues because they haven't been torn down in the past.
Don, I was going a step further than replacing statues. I was going and looking at what comes up with maybe a new development, like when the streetcar was built, they put in art. When the mall was built, they put in art. And all of this is subject to me to public scrutiny, because they're using public dollars. I mean, the 1% for art, I think it's even more than that. So I
think you're going off line here, you know, as far as what the board directed was just to talk about you know, the placement of public art.
That's what I'm
And-
saying, though. That's what I'm saying is that,
You're
is
talking
that public
about-
art is being placed with public dollars when developments are put in. And I mean, all along the mall, all along the streetcar line, all of that was paid for with public dollars. It's public art. I cannot stand what's down there next to the county building, that
That's
rebarb
that
but
is
that was
off
paid for
topic
with
though,
that's
Terry.
public art.
Hold on,
So,
hold on.
Stephanie,
Stephanie?
So I guess my question is, I mean, the issue of where these decisions should be made is a longer term one. I have a short term question, which is, what do we, the neighborhood association, want from the RAC as it is now? And is there a way we can get it? I mean, for example, there is the contact link. It is, you know, as Terry noted, it's, you know, go ahead, send us an email and maybe they'll respond and maybe they won't, right? But maybe we should send first, maybe we should send an email that says, we're the Rose City Park Neighborhood Association and we want to know X, where maybe X is, you know, we want to know what the process is for us to give input on, you know, and in particular is that I know that in the German American Society and 57th and Sandy is an now empty pedestal. Do we have, is there other public art in our neighborhood that is like subject to a decision at some point?
Not that I know of.
According to the website and the free FAQs about the statues that have been removed, the elk is planning on being replaced or being restored to its spot. The one in Rose City Park, the George Washington statue, will not be replaced because it's on private property and the owners don't want it to be replaced there.
thank you. I think going off of Stephanie's suggestion, it might be better to maybe pivot a little bit, and rather than putting out my letter or Terry's letter, sending an email and asking what their meetings look like. And is there a Zoom link? Can we sit in on this Zoom meeting or have like one or two representatives and go that way rather than with a letter?
I would take that a step farther and ask for a public process. Because what I see now, yes, they could take letters, but it's truly not what I would call a public process. And as for, Dawn is right, as for the statue of George Washington, but since it stood in this neighborhood for decades, then where does it go? I mean, it's something, for some of us, it's being taken away. And I support the German American Society of not wanting it back because I'm sure they fear for their building. But where does it go? Does it come back to our neighborhood, maybe on a public piece of property? Does it go to Hollywood? Does it go, or is it just locked up forever? I mean, yeah, not everybody likes it, but not everybody likes every piece of art that's out there. And there's a lot of people, you know, every public figure has a downside and an upside. So
I think in terms of public figures and statues, I think that is a topic that maybe is not as relevant to what we're talking about right now. I understand that it is a very, I don't want to say divisive, but people have opinions on it. But I think that to kind of maybe merge what Stephanie and Terry are asking for, send that email asking for a Zoom link, and then also maybe add questions about making it a public forum. Maybe kind of say, is there a Zoom link and can we share it with our neighborhood? Can we share it with people? Something along those lines. Yeah. Richard?
Self unmuted here. There we go. I think that's very sensible. And I would like to propose that we follow that line and keep the letters in abeyance for the short term and see what kind of response we get back. it's a very positive approach, I think.
Yes, Stephanie.
I've put in the chat in the hopes that maybe it could be approved quickly or maybe it needs to be drafted later, but I just put in the chat a draft of an initial email asking for information, which if there were, you know, if it were easy to approve it, we could just send it out.
I like that.
I like that too.
I'd add a section about like maybe like what, like how do you, like what's your Zoom link, or like what is your public platform, something like that.
I
just
think we ought
ask-
to ask for a public process. I mean, you know, leave it open, but
That's kind of what we're trying to do.
I'm not trying to say this should be the end of our thing, but I move that as
Make
a
motion.
start, we send this email as drafted in the chat to the organization as a start to a conversation, and we can always add more to it. But I move that we send it as it
Thank
is.
you for coming, Sarah.
I'll second that.
Okay.
All right.
What, is there any discussion on this before we go on?
Well, I just want to say that I think there's a diplomatic process that is less strongly worded than these letters to begin the process. And I think that Stephanie's suggestion is a good way to do it. There's a spot for public input. There's also the names of all the people on the Public Arts Subcommittee and their email contact numbers where you can contact them directly. And I think the best way to begin is just ask them what the process is before we start demanding what the process should be.
I agree.
can I make one suggestion here? I'm reading the chat, and it says, what are the options for us as an organization or for individuals? And I would add maybe as a process in there. I'd like to get the word process in there because to me, it's missing.
You could say it to have input into these processes or into these decision-making processes, but I feel like we should maybe move on soon.
Yeah, I don't, well,
But we've already had a motion and a second for this first draft email to be sent. So I think that we should go forward with if people are aye and nays.
Okay. Let's do a vote. All those in favor of the language as presented here by Stephanie Singer in the chat line, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
I'm going to abstain because I think the word process ought to be in there.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, so motion passes. Thank you very much. Good.
Thank you, Stephanie.
would you like me to take charge of sending it?
Please.
Just as a side note, my work with the Regional Art Council usually revolves around the 1% for art program. So if you have a project in your neighborhood that has a lot of public funding, then it's mandated that 1% of the budget gets attributed to. That's how you see art in places like the Convention Center, the Downtown Transit Mall, and those places. I'm not aware of any projects that are in our neighborhood that would qualify for that. I think the street work that PBOT does is exempt from that. But we just need to keep in our mind that if there is a big public project at some stage, then we should be more involved in the selection of art for that project.
That's what I was trying to say earlier, Kelly.
Okay, let us move on. Thank you very much for the discussion, very lively one. And Don, thank you very much for doing due diligence and finding out what is actually on their website and how far they've come since our July meeting. So that gives us some hope as well, that I think the public is going to be more involved. Okay. Next, there is the diversity committee. Oh, nope. I'm moving ahead. We have January general membership meeting. So do we have ideas about themes and topics?
You suggested climate change, and I like that.
I think it's on everybody's mind, whether they want to deal with it or not. But I think if we can address it in chunks that are not fighting one another, but rather saying, okay, it's happening. This is what we've got. What can be done? You know, how is it affecting us? And I think what Stephanie had offered was how does the climate change and race inequity intersect? Is that right?
That was Zoe's
Oh,
suggestion.
Zoe. Yeah.
I had a conversation today, this afternoon, with Sharon, and she made a suggestion of how does that affect our specific neighborhood within our boundaries? What if zoning was where there was a 10-story building on every block and that sort of thing, you know, for, you know, in the population angle of it, you know, how much more can this neighborhood absorb and keep our quality of life? How much more of everything that's happening can this neighborhood absorb that is, you know, affecting our quality of life? I mean, personally, I think the quality of life in Portland has disintegrated over the last couple of years. And it's not all climate change, but it's, you know, how much more if PBOT restricts the number of lanes, how much more is that going to affect our neighborhood? I mean, all this has to do with climate change, because PBOT is doing their transit things to support climate change, but in turn, they're creating more congestion, which creates more pollution. So,
Okay.
I think
Jerry,
we already
how does it
discussed
affect our
that.
neighborhood?
Jerry, time out. Jerry, time out. Okay, we understand your position. I think we have a few other people that want to add their thoughts. So give them some space. Allison. I thought Allison wanted to speak. Yes, Joe.
I think that we would also want to like touch on like what we as an organization, a neighborhood, or even like on the larger scale, the city, just what us may be able to do, like climate change wise.
Yes, Stephanie.
I also, I think that it's going to get worse, not better, in terms of the pressures on the neighborhood. In particular, at some point, if major cities in the US become unlivable, I think that the pressure on Portland, which will probably remain a place that is habitable in the barest sense, is going to be enormous. Boy, how we even prepare. I mean, at this point, I don't know how we prepare for that. The changes are going to be enormous, and the political pressure on us and the difficulty of making the case that we should be able to live as we've always lived is going to become very difficult. I just kind of spilling this out. As a kind of, I mean, this is not an immediate thing, but I think it may be time for a lot of conversation about how we see our role as a neighborhood association, as individuals, as Portlanders, in facing what is coming down the pike, given that we don't know exactly what it is, but I think it's quite clear that it is going to be difficult. And I would throw in here also in addition to chaos from changes in climate, on another topic, chaos coming politically in the United States is something that I would like to personally start thinking and talking about with people. I realize it's a little bit off topic, but there you have it.
Stephanie, really quickly, what you said about Portland being a place that people would come to, Sharon was saying exactly the same thing on the phone this afternoon.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I think any place that's habitable, that has water,
Mhm.
is going to be a big draw. And so maybe we should learn what is happening to our communities just now. You know, right now we've got trees that are 60-foot tall that are dying because they are dried out from this past year. And though we've been facing a drought here for, I guess, gosh, close to 15 years, it's just been increasing. So I think we need to talk about, okay, what can we do as individuals? Do we start, you know, having food bearing plants in our yards? Do we, because the food chain is getting interrupted as far as distribution? What can we do in the way of building stability, getting to know your neighbor? But I am open for discussion.
So Joe had his hand up. Allison, if you'd like to say anything, and then Dawn, we could go in that order.
Want me to go
I've got
first?
nothing. I was just talking to my husband.
Okay, cool. So I think in my English class, we read a really good article about climate doom and this idea that if we're being all doom and gloom, the world's coming to an end and everything is just sucks. And people are just going to start giving up. And I think it was Stephanie who said all those issues, that topics of how people are just going to come to Portland, those are extremely important. But I think we might want to have like a little glint of there's hope. There's hope in this. There is something we can do, because if we start just being all everything sucks, nothing's going to get better, then I feel like that will just drain people, and that it can promote the idea that people will just give up.
Dawn? Oh, you're gone for a second.
You know, I agree. Pushing the wrong buttons. I agree with all of that. And, you know, I agree with Joe that I think one of the really important functions of the neighborhood association is gathering information, providing options to the neighborhood. And so I think including things like how to plan your water usage, how to plan if you're going to plant, which plants are going to do better. What sort of filtration do you want on your furnace if wildfires become and smoke becomes more of an issue? I think finding some concrete information and giving people, not telling people it's all going to be the same as it ever was, but there are things you can do to mitigate the changes that are coming. I think that that's one of our functions, and I think that's something that we can do well, not to negate the changes, but to provide some buffer for the changes.
Nice. I have like a tag onto that as a question. So I'm wondering who you all as a group know who is either doing research about this or compiling resources. Because I don't know that many people who are, I mean, like I know people who are preparing, but I don't have so many contacts who could. So if anybody knows anybody who's doing this research, compiling resources, part of an organization who are actively preparing for maybe wildfires or the earthquake, and then have them come in to really talk about like, we're going to be dealing with wildfires. Here's what you can do. We're going to be dealing with the earthquake. Here's what you can do. Water. Here's what you can do. So if anybody knows anybody. Yeah.
Well, I know that we have Frank Granstrom, who lives locally, and he's been on the board for a period of time. And he is leading up the international, the local chapter of the Paris Accords implementation plan for Portland. So he's a wealth of knowledge as far as, you know, cause, effect, and maybe mobility of organization of how can we work together. That's one area. I know some great urban farmers that can give you a lot of information about how to work with what water you've got and keep it as little as possible. So we can, I mean, that's actually our in charge of our distribution, Helene and Roger Farnham. They're some of the best urban farmers I know, and they do an amazing job. So that would be nice to bring them on. We may want to have a panel discussion at the end, you know, of having different people there and people asking questions to them to see if there could be some answers for some ideas.
I think also the Oregon State Cooperative Extension Service has experts that deal with all things growing and water usage and different types of irrigation systems and different plants that might be more amenable to changing conditions. And they could provide some expertise as well.
Two quick comments. You talk about doing some of this, but there's a cost to doing that, and question where somebody could find funding to help them out doing this. In other words, if you're talking about putting in an irrigation system or whatever, where can somebody find funding to do that? Is there funding available? I don't know. I mean, I'll tell you, this is a personal opinion here. The only thing I ever hear about climate change is fossil fuel, fossil fuel, fossil fuel, and I'm tired of hearing that. I mean, I mean, there's other things out there that need to be talked about.
So that's off topic. And Stephanie
It's not
and
off
Jennifer
topic.
both
It's
have.
not off topic. What I'm saying
So
is we need to
it's
go
on topic, but it's not what we're
things.
discussing. So no one in this board has suggested that we talk about fossil fuels. I think they're a big part of climate change, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about who we want to come during the next general meeting. And we're talking about urban farmers. Like, you had a good idea of saying, how are we going to help people find finances for that? That's great. But we're not talking about what we think is the cause of climate change. We're talking about helping people prepare for it. So Stephanie and Jennifer both had comments.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to something that Terry said about helping people find financing to do something. Another thing to think about is how we help people. You know, I mean, what we can do as neighbors. You know, I mean, if there's someone, you know, who has a yard but doesn't know anything about gardening or doesn't know, and you know, can we organize little work parties where, you know, we help people you know, go into their individual yards and say, okay, here's concrete things, and you know, or organize groups of people to help each other, or you know, there are resources. Money is one kind of resource. Neighborly work is another. So just wanted to add that to what Terry said about, you know, like, you know, it's one thing to say to people, oh, you can, you know, sign up for this, you know, you can do these 8 million things in your garden, but it's pretty intimidating if you don't know, like I've planted tomatoes, you know. That's about it.
Yeah. It's great also, you know, maybe we have people that come and talk about this, but also give them a list of resources that we would put on the website, say for next 10 days, that people can track down and say, okay, this is the information you can have as far as, you know, maybe other people that are interested in gardening, other people that are work share, you know, for gardening, different things like that that might be helpful. I think it would be important for us to do some research beforehand, so we would have that material handy for the meeting.
Well, I think that this is not just a January general meeting process. I think it's an ongoing process. And I think one of the things we should think about as a neighborhood association is how to provide a mechanism to disseminate this information when it's required. Because I agree with you, Stephanie, I think it's much more effective to build capacity within the neighborhood than look for outside resources. And we have tremendous resources within this neighborhood that are willing to provide assistance, that are willing to provide information, that are willing to share their knowledge. And one of our roles, I think, is how to bring that information in and how to put it how to disseminate it in a way that's accessible to everybody in the neighborhood.
So I'm going to be a little bit of a naysayer for a minute. If we only have 4 meetings a year, it seems to me that we should address things that the neighbors are really interested in. And if we were to have a theme, we might think about homelessness, we might think about gun violence, we might think about more of our political candidates. I'm just not sure if climate change, if we can put a compelling program together that would appeal to the neighbors. And then I'll be quiet.
So thank you, Kelly. I think that those, like all of those topics that you addressed are like subsections of climate change. So the worse that climate change gets, the more people are going to struggle with houselessness. And the more, so like, I think it just kind of falls like dominoes. So I think if we situate ourselves with climate change as the theme, and then like have that be like an overarching theme, maybe, I think that we could also talk about how that intersects with houselessness, how that intersects with gun violence, how that intersects with the elections, because I think that it really does. I know that maybe not in this meeting, maybe not in this general meeting, it'll be a topic. I said that sentence order wrong. Just don't worry about it. But I know Tammy at the beginning was talking about like political upheaval and political unrest that is coming hand in hand with climate change. So maybe we can also weave that in at a different meeting. I think January for climate change is a good place to start.
Okay. So I think at this point, we don't have much time left on this topic, but we do need to dig into it and develop an agenda and list of people that will be coming as speakers. And how can we make this compelling? Like Kelly was saying, we need to make something. So what? The question is, why should I show up? What's important about this? And maybe Joe, you can help us in making it enticing. How would we make it enticing to talk about climate change? Okay, and who wants to go and get their heart ripped apart in a meeting? No one. But how can we work together to walk through these adversities that we're facing with climate change? How can we make it more compelling? I am open, but I think what we need to do is have a group of us work on this after the meeting at another time so we can get this done, because we don't have much time left in the meeting itself. So Don?
Well, I agree with you, Tam, and I think a way that would frame this conversation that would make it more accessible to people is not just these are the changes that are coming, but what can we do about it? What can you do about extreme temperature and heating and cooling in your home? What can you do about water usage and how you grow things and keep your yards looking okay? How can you deal with fires and smoke? So I think providing some concrete options on things people can do to protect themselves and others is a good way to draw people in.
Yeah, and also to connect it, since so many of us are in so much need of personal connection right now, especially those of us who've lived alone through COVID, and putting that piece of it in so that the meeting really is like, here's a way to get started to change your life right now and for the future. Yeah, I personally would find that very compelling.
Okay, so I'll be on the subcommittee. Stephanie wants to be on the subcommittee. Zoe, who else? And Joe and Don. Okay, so we've got a group of us that are willing to be on the subcommittee to pull together the agenda and think about the positive spin and go ahead and figure out what we can do in way of getting some concrete speakers as well as some tangible takeaways for the meeting. Sound good? All right. Is that an agreement by everybody? We don't need to take a motion or anything? Okay. All right. Let's move on. Excellent. Sounds exciting. All right. So we have the diversity committee has a land acknowledgement update and recommended mission statement and draft equity screen. Stephanie, do you have those pulled up, or can you share your?
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have them pulled up.
Let's see if I can pull them up.
I have it pulled up now.
Okay.
Well, it's opening. Here we go. So you want to start with the equity screen?
First on the list is the land acknowledgement update. We had a lot of crossouts. We shortened the whole thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Which
so
it takes out all the aspirational stuff.
Yeah, so the idea here was to make it, because people tend to tune these things out, especially the third time they read them or hear them. So to make it short and sweet, well, it's not totally short, but it's shorter. Yeah, so we are suggesting taking out this passage, which is, fun history of the neighborhood, but didn't, and also taking out this passage because it's aspirational and may not be helpful in a sense. It's hard to know how people would hear this. If we say this land serves all people, well, maybe it doesn't right now. And if you're one of the people who's feeling like it doesn't serve you, how does that how does that sound? And this is really a public facing statement of the neighborhood association. So I think we want to be careful about that kind of thing. And it's very hard to get the tone of something like this right. That's my personal opinion. Anyway, so as the diversity committee, we decided to take out these things, and we ask the board to approve this newly shortened land acknowledgement.
All motion.
Any questions?
What is further down on that page, please?
Oh, so further down is kind of general, information. It's not to be read, but it's things that we've collected about, relative to the history of Native Americans, and we have some links and the text that got us started on ours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got a
So
motion.
Zoe moved, I will second.
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. So it passes.
I noticed that Terry has his hand up.
Jerry, yes.
Oh, Terry, you are muted.
I unmuted once. My question, going back to, trying to figure out now why okay. Going back to the road, many major roads in the last part of the statement here, you talk about honoring older names. You know, can you hear me? I hear something in the background. You talk about honoring older names, and yet I see the city changing names all the time. They rename streets, they rename high schools, they rename lots of things. They're not honoring, what was named that wasn't even a part of this, that has come. And so I'm questioning why there's a double standard here.
It's not, so this is us as a neighborhood association. We're not speaking for the city. And we don't have the power as a neighborhood association to change the names of streets, to change the names of schools. We as a neighborhood association are acknowledging that this land doesn't belong to us. And there were names before the colonizers came and renamed everything. And so we're not involved with changing things. We're just acknowledging that there were names before and they were changed, and that we will honor those old names.
So then we can honor the old names. Excuse me, Stephanie, I apologize. So we can honor the old names of high schools and streets and things like that as well.
Absolutely. I mean, we could do that. I will say that I was the one who went and looked up as many old names as I could find. I couldn't find the old name of the Sandy, and the Willamette is actually an old name. I just thought it was such a beautiful name. So that's part of why I want, and finding that name, I mean, maybe this is just my personal thing, but finding that old name, so old, really, it made me connect to the river in a different way. And it made, for me, the history, when I say Nichiwana or Y East or Catholic Poodle River or Lawitlatla, which is the mountain that the volcano exploded in the 80s. I feel it makes me feel connected to the history of this land. And for me, that was, that's why I really like having it in the acknowledgement. That's just my personal.
I agree. Okay, so did we take a vote on this?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
It passed.
And it passed. Okay. Thank you for your comment though, Terry. And the last item, no, not last, the mission statement was the second item. Do you have the mission statement available?
So with your permission, Tammy, can I go to the equity screen because I don't have the mission statement available, and maybe Zoe, can you maybe find it while we're talking about the equity screen? Okay, so the idea of the equity screen is related to the feeling from all of the diversity committee that we do not want to stay as a standing committee. What we want to see is practices that become part of the practice of the Rose City Park Neighborhood Association that make all of our practice as aware and equitable as we can. So the idea of the equity screen is these are just a set of questions to ask when we're considering taking an action or putting out a communication. It's a set of questions to ask ourselves as we do that. And there's no right answer to these, but the right part of it is to ask the questions and to have the conversations. This goes back to our agreements about having difficult conversations. And sometimes just kind of going through a checklist like this and asking yourself these things, you can, sometimes that will lead to doing things in a more equitable, open, accessible way. So Tammy, I don't know if you want me to read through this or
We have it available for folks to read. Let's leave it open to the folks. Has everyone had a chance to read this draft for the equity screen? And are there any comments? Yes, Jennifer.
Well, one, I think this is great. And I think we should all practice asking these questions before we publish and maybe even before we say things out loud, but we can all aspire, right? My question for you, Stephanie, and or the diversity committee before you dissolve is, where do we propose to put this documentation so that board and committee members have access to it on the reg?
So the website, because that's more work for you.
Not me, for Michelle.
So yeah, I mean, and I think another so I don't know the answer to that question other than to say, shouldn't it be on the website? But where we put it so that people see it, and actually use it. On that topic, we did talk in the diversity committee about making it part of committee reports to the board. That simply to say, did we use the equity screen as we were making this decision? Just even starting with just yes or no, so that it becomes part of the habit when we're reporting on our work in committee. Did we use the equity screen? But it's a
So might I make a suggestion?
please.
So one, I think it would be important for our website to have a space for the land acknowledgement and neighborhood agreements, and this equity screen could live in that space. I think it might also be valuable for committee pages or spaces to have a link to that, and some sort of like reference that says our committee, so our committee is committed, I don't know, like committed to applying, the RCPNA equity screen, during its activities, and strive for this in our outcomes. And then it could be in all the places too, as a link.
A good idea. Can I motion to have this accepted by the board and then also to have it placed upon Jennifer's suggestion on the website?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Okay. Motion passes. Zoe, were you able to find the mission statement?
Yeah. Do you want me to share
To
my
Stephanie
screen now?
too.
I'm sorry, do we have the mission statement up somewhere?
Yes. Can you see my screen?
Thank you. Yes. So this is the mission statement that we propose. The Rose City Park Neighborhood Association works to build a safe, equitable, and healthy environment for all neighbors, present and future.
And why? Why was there a change?
So there was a change because of discomfort with the word livability. Because livability is in the eye of the beholder, and words that are ill-defined have traditionally, especially in the context of neighborhoods and real estate, been they've hidden a lot of
It's code word.
it's a code word. Thank you. It's a code. It has been a code word for white in a lot of places. You know, the character of the neighborhood, the livability of the neighborhood. So we wanted to put some specifics of what in what we thought people might actually really mean in a positive way by livability. What makes a neighborhood livable? If it's safe, if it's a healthy place to live. And that is how we went from the old mission statement to this new draft.
I like it.
I only ask about the word build. You know, the old mission statement that maintain and improve. Maybe because I'm an architect, you know, when you're building something, you're actually building something.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Maintain implies that we have it already.
How
So
about
I don't
promote?
know. I mean, what is
Would,
there a word that's somehow in between those?
do you think support
Oh,
would convey that?
Or promote?
I feel like I like build because I think that we are trying to build something and we're, you know, yeah, I like build, but I also like support. So
What
Um,
about both? Like, there's going to be some areas that we need to work on building, and there's some areas that we need to work on maintaining. Like we just did build and maintain, or
Too many ants.
too many.
yeah,
Okay.
I mean,
don't know, there's a lot to maintain.
I like promote, and I'm okay with support, and I like promote.
I like promote better too, because to me, build says that we don't have it now. And,
Which
and I'm also concerned about, I'm not quite sure that you completely replaced the word livability, particularly when you went, when you talked about character, because more than livability, I look at character of a neighborhood, and character is somewhat of the physical structure of the neighborhood, not necessarily the livability structure. I can't think of another word. So I'm a little bit concerned about that maybe that's missing, but I like the word promote too.
So something about the physicality of the neighborhood, is that like
Yeah,
yeah.
like the
yeah, that's what
buildings
seems to be missing here.
themselves.
Yeah,
Well,
no, I mean, that's such a crucial part of the neighborhood is yeah.
I think that
I mean, I
that's
think
maybe too specific, though.
so. I think so, Terry. I don't know. Tell me if this if this seems okay to if this makes sense to you. I think the physical is in there, right? I mean, it's it's implicit in environment. I mean,
That's, yeah, no, it's to me, it's missing. It's just
okay,
missing.
yeah, I hear
And
you.
that's where physicality is a good word, but I mean, that seems to be what's missing, and livability somewhat covered physicality. I think, at least that's the way I interpret it. Character does include physicality, and I don't know what word to use, but it seems like that's missing.
Well, I would like to make a motion that we accept the proposed draft, changing the word build to promote.
Second.
Were you
Yes,
gonna go
Adam?
farther with that, Don?
No, I think that, I mean, I think we want to keep it short. I think we want to acknowledge that safe, equitable, healthy environments evolve over time. And we don't want to be the last board to put our stamp on it. So I think promoting a safe, equitable, and healthy environment helps state our mission and keeps it open for interpretation.
Agreed. It's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
I,
All those opposed? Okay.
Seconded it?
Huh?
Who provided the second?
Me.
Zoe,
I did. Hello.
Zoe, I could run the meeting while I'm here, so thanks.
Sorry.
Here's the
I
help.
just, there was like the awkward lull of silence, and I was like, I guess I'll just keep going.
So,
Thanks.
I think that the last thing on the diversity committee's part of this meeting is that we would like to dissolve ourselves with the idea that we are available to reconvene if the board has specific tasks for us. But we really feel very strongly that diversity cannot be just, put into one committee and then, we've taken care of it. And we all also want to get on with working on other things.
I
I
want
don't,
for all your work. You guys have been one of the most productive committees we've had in a long time. So thank you.
and I'd like to, Maro is not here, but she was a terrific part of it. And I personally am hoping that we can maybe recruit her for the board, but we'll see.
Well, on that note, I want to thank the diversity committee for their hard work and everyone who has participated in that, who are still here or not, and your insights and your thoughts and documentation for us to read. So I wanted to appreciate that. Thank you. I think also on that note, we need to look at the board possibly getting some training ourselves for how to deal with power differences and how to progress within ourselves of sharing our power and advertising what we're good at and how we can help others in our community with this wealth of power we have of talking to the elected officials in our neighborhood. So I think that's one gift that we have that we should be recognizing in ourselves and thinking of offering it up to others in whatever way. So I'm open to your thoughts on that. And Stephanie gave us a link to consider as far as training. So I think we should think about whether or not we ought to do that as a group or whether we should do it as individuals. Doesn't have to be answered now, but I'd like for us to think about that and get back to me, talk to me, give me an email, give me your thoughts, because it may be something that we should just hunker down and have our entire group sit down or have a weekend 2-hour session or a series of sessions to talk about this. So I'm open to that, and let's talk about it further, and we'll chat about it on our email offline. That's okay. Yes.
So
Stephanie.
can I just add that the particular link I sent was for an event on the 7th, which is this Sunday. So just just it's something that if people want to, they can do independently.
Yes, Joe.
Real fast, is that now our official description for the neighborhood association? Or did we just vote to change that one word? That is official?
Yes.
Okay, I am updating our social media descriptions right now.
Whoa, love you. If you don't have a mom and dad, I'll go ahead and adopt you right now. Take you home. All right.
Careful, he's a teenager and he'll eat you out of house and home.
Well, that's okay. You know.
And you have to pay for his doctorate.
Oh, there you go. Well, I think that's a family. I think it's a neighborhood thing. We think about it, start doing a GoFundMe account started already. You know, get it going.
I'm also a picky eater, so you're gonna have to deal with that too.
Oh. Okay, if everyone's good with going ahead, we only have 15 minutes left. Excuse me. It's 8:46 p.m. So I'd like to offer up, what do we have to, we don't have Jeff here to talk about the playground, so we can cut that one out. Let's start up with land use and see where we go.
So I gave a land use report at the general meeting, so I'm gonna go and do like a minute and a half here. So I think people know that the Sandy 51 apartments, they applied for 6 additional units in the ground floor. That has been granted. We did not vote to file an appeal. It seems like the city is going to be so pro homes and housing that we don't have any chance there. Slow streets, Scott Cohen from Peabody is coming to our November 18th land use and transportation meeting. And there are 4 different intersections that he's going to present on. So if you live anywhere near these, please attend our meeting. Sacramento and 70th, Sacramento and 64th, 53rd and Halsey, and 53rd and Irving. I think everybody knows that the deal that the Southeast Asian Vicariate had fell through. They've promised that they'll keep us in touch. And I did talk to the developer on the apartments at 47th and Sandy. That's Cause on 47th. They're 33% leased. And they said they'd get back to me as to how many of those residents have cars. And if the board would be interested in touring the facility, I'm going to set up something for the Land Use and Transportation Committee, and I'll invite board members too. They've offered to give us a little tour, and I think it's important for us to be engaged in these developments as much as possible. That's it.
Thank you, Kelly. Communications, Jennifer, Joe?
I'll start. So the communications committee, I think our number one item is that our newsletter deadline is December 3rd. So that means that is actually, I believe, before the next board meeting. And there'll need to be some work around the general meeting agenda, speakers, and a story before that time, because that is the feature for the newsletter. I also want to point out, if you have any leads around advertising or community partnership, those are 2 sources of revenue that we did not discuss earlier in the meeting, but are really important resources for paying for our newsletter, printing costs, and it could fairly easily cover those costs with a couple community partnerships. So I would maybe request that board members think about their relationships with businesses or other organizations in the area that might want to be a community partner. Community partner is basically just money that they give to have their logo on our website and in our newsletter. Right now, almost all of our community partners, with the exception of Fire on the Mountain and PGE, are in kind, which is great, but it does not pay for our printing costs. So 3 silver level community partners would cover 2 full printings of our newsletter. So just like throw that out there. Also, we are working on a complete overhaul of our website. So we're targeting January for the rollout of that. Michelle has set up a sandbox to test that out, do some presentations, and so our committee can like address that in November and or December as it comes out. But we are looking to just clean things up, remove kind of all the different places that you can go, and add more pictures. So you'll love it. I guarantee it. And then we did recently, or I guess we haven't lost him quite yet, but Nate, who has been managing our lists and did provide some of our interim website support, is moving out of the neighborhood. So we will be looking at figuring out who's going to help us manage our listservs from here. And see if there was like any other things really quick.
There's one question on the two, actually, how much for a silver community partner?
For community partnership is anyone that contributes at least $500, but less than 1,000. We do have a brochure, so we can share that information with you. The ads come in 2 sizes. A business card size ad is $40 per issue, and a double is $80 per issue. There's a small discount if you do renew, like have a year, like you do for. So we also have fee sheets for those too. And it will be lovely when we get all of that information put to public space. And we are looking to honor our community partners. We want to do some recognition. And so we kind of landed on doing certificates. So we are working to kind of like provide a public acknowledgement for our community partners so they can say, you know, like proud sponsor of the RCPNA, gold level. So we're working on that too with this upcoming year. So, oh, and PGE should be sending $400 our way.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for all your hard work.
And Joe, did you have anything else to add?
No, not really. Overall, our social media is going up. We're getting more followers, more likes, more stuff like that. I have some good ideas. At least I think they're good because they're my ideas. But I have some ideas that I'm hoping to implement soon. It's crunch time right now for me because like the quarter ends really shortly. So I'm probably going to get to those a bit later in the month. But we've got some ideas and I'm excited to see them come to fruition.
Wonderful. Okay, we've got just a few more minutes. Don, do you have any words for us about the safety committee?
Sure, I'll talk real quick. The last couple of months, I've been trying to put together resources for our houseless population within the community, and also with people having negative interactions with certain aspects of the houseless community, as a way to provide both resources for everybody. I've talked about that in the last couple of meetings. There's also an article that'll appear in the next newsletter, kind of outlining what the options are for that. You know, we talked about building capacity within the community, and that's even more important now. I think I said last week that the neighborhood response team from PPB is down to 1 representative, and they're not staffed. There's a couple of positive things now as a result of this unexpected surplus of dollars to the city. They are devoting, I understand, about $40 million into houseless resources, including behavioral support specialists, resource specialists, additional places for safe housing, and extra beds. So I think as that
those sweeps, they're going to continue doing. They're funding sweeps through the winter.
But there'll also be funding options for people that get caught up in those sweeps, hopefully. But
see.
having $40 million more in resources provides them a lot more choices as a city to meet their needs. Also, they're going to increase the behavioral response teams, Portland Street Response, as non-police interventions for people experiencing mental health crises. It was restricted in this pilot year to one team working during business hours in the Lentz neighborhood. It's now being increased to 2 teams working weekends as well and outside of business hours on most of the east side. So that's going to be an increase for that as well. In addition, there's going to be some proposed increases into support for the Portland Police Bureau, including increasing the number of public safety support specialists, which are non-armed officers that basically do everything that the line officers now don't do, since they're mainly just responding to 911 calls. So this influx has provided some hopefully positive changes in the environment around Portland. That's all I have on that.
Okay, thank you. I realized that I stepped over a couple items that should have been included. And I'd like to cover that in the recap here. Just last few minutes. Are there any questions of Don before I go on first? Thank you for the input, Don, and keeping track of this for us. Very important. Okay, the 2 items that I didn't catch were the grant action. You know, we need to talk about that. If we can push that to our December meeting instead of extending this meeting, if that would be okay for folks. Is that all right?
The only problem with discussing the grant is that the grant applications are due by December 30th.
Well, the 30th. So that gives us a little bit of time, but let's talk about it in the chat on through email, okay? And get some ideas flowing that way. Also, the date for the garage sale wasn't established, so we can do that in December. And also, we need someone to investigate the cost for advertisement. Yeah, Stephanie?
Yeah, so if we want to put something in the January newsletter, maybe it could go in the April newsletter. I can't see too many people scheduling their garage sales before April around here, right?
Right.
Okay. Okay.
The next general meeting's in March. So it's kind of like back to back. So it will be February will be the deadline, and mid-March will be when that's published. So just for
Okay.
clarification.
Oh, good. Even better.
So we can still do that.
Scheduling the garage sale.
Yeah.
You don't want to, you need to find out when Eastmoreland has theirs, when Laurelhurst has theirs, particularly when Laurelhurst has theirs, and you don't want to schedule them on the same day.
Terry, I think you're volunteering for the committee.
I'm not volunteering.
Yay,
for the committee, but
Terry, thank you so much. You're actually, you are a great resource when it comes to this, Terry.
I've been going to garage sales and estate sales for 40 years, so.
Well, there you go. We'll tap you as a resource.
That's fine.
All right.
You can start
Sounds
email
good.
chains talking about both of these things, the grant and the garage sale.
Good, good.
Email chain.
And just to recap, also, we have a committee of myself, Don, Stephanie, Zoe, and Joe that are going to be working on pulling this general membership agenda together and speakers, right? Okay. And we also agreed that we'll be doing an email blast for the upcoming general membership meeting 3 days prior, and that agendas will be published 1 week prior on the web, and that a link to the meetings will be on the web 1 week prior. All right. And Stephanie's going to be doing a newsletter article, and I guess that's been pushed over to the next meeting, right? For the April, or the March meeting. All right. Anything else we missed? Any oops or things that we need to talk about as far as anyone get upset during the meeting that needs to air some grievances? Nick, do you want to say anything in there? Nick Putnam? How about Matt? Thank you for joining us.
Oh, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, well, if I get a motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Seconded.
okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Good night,
Bye, everybody. Have a good
Bye-bye.
night.
Good meeting.